When I stopped in front of Helger's Rheinhaus in Lübeck on this cold Sunday with my old dark blue Passat, the air smelled of rain and marzipan. Everything was already arranged inside with butter cakes, fillings, filter coffee, and these golden balloons, which my sister-in-law Anke always inflates much too early. Helger turned 75, wore a pearl necklace like an order, and let everyone kiss her as if she had personally invented the North German weather. I put the baking dish with beef suos in the kitchen, smoothed my dress, and immediately realized that Jens was up to something today. He was too friendly, too sniffy, too loud, and when my husband grinned like that, it usually became expensive for others. So, for months, Jens pretended that our good life was the result of his genius, although almost everything came from my family fortune. My father had left 3 old buildings in Hamburg. Clean rented houses, not a fairy tale castle, but enough so that none of us ever had to freeze. This money had never been a toy, but a hedge for my daughter Katharina, for the grandchildren Leonie and Mats, and for bad times. Jens didn't like the word security because it reminded him that there are limits, and not every key fits every lock. Anke and her husband, Uwe, my son Fabian, the children and Helga were already sitting at the table like a little queen. Man, I nodded politely, poured some coffee, and noticed that Jens kept looking at his phone as if he was waiting for applause. Then he tapped his champagne with the knife, cleared his throat meaningfully, and stood next to his mother, wide as a mayor. My grandchildren immediately stopped giggling, and even Uwe put the fork away, because Jens always staged his big moments. Then he said that from next month he would pay his mother 5,000 euros every month, out of gratitude and family duty. It was quiet for a moment, then Anke clapped first. Much too loud, of course, and Helger was already pressing the napkin to his eyes with a stir. I looked into the round and noticed how everyone was automatically squinting at me, as if I now had to play stirred as well. Instead, I just smiled, raised my glass a little, and calmly asked, "By what account exactly?" Jens. He laughed first, that self-satisfied short laugh that is supposed to make women small, and said, "Well, from our family account, it's clear." I tilted my head and repeated, "No, I really meant exactly from which account, with which right of disposal, and what name." Helger's smile slipped a little bit. Anke blinked, and Jens turned red on his ears, which rarely ended well for him. He said, "I didn't have to make a scene again today. After all, it's about his mother and about respect in the family." I almost had to laugh because men like Jens always demand respect when they have secretly been stealing from someone for a long time. I put down my glass, wiped my fingers dry on the napkin, and said, "Then let's talk openly. 3 weeks ago, the Sparkasse in Hamburg had sent me a notification because someone had tried to log into my depot twice. The first time I thought of an oversight, the second time I immediately thought of Jens, and unfortunately, I was right." His face didn't change completely, but I knew every wrinkle in it and saw the brief panic jolt immediately. "Anna, I had the accesses checked." The IP address had come from Helga's living room from exactly the tablet that Anke had set up for her. Now Anke was suddenly very busy with her cake plate, and Helger said quietly, "She doesn't understand at all what all this is supposed to do." I nodded to her and said, "I even believe you, Helga. You like to sign without reading half of it." Fabian first looked at me, then at Jens, and I noticed by his jaw that he was suddenly no longer my son. That's why I stayed particularly calm, also for Leonie and Mats, who were supposed to learn that you don't have to duck when someone is lying. Jens said that was absurd, and I would expose his mother on her birthday just because I had always been against her. I replied, "No, I'm not exposing anyone. I'm just reading out what you two have been preparing behind my back." I pulled the copies out of my handbag, neatly sorted with paper clips, because drama works best in Germany with order. There were drafts for a permanent transfer, a power of attorney, and a loan application, secured by rental income from 2 houses that did not belong to Jens. Jens immediately tried to sell everything as a misunderstanding, as mere planning, as a loving help for an elderly mother with a small income. I asked him why he had then digitally inserted my signature, the one with the old family name, which I have not worn for years. No one said anything this time, not even the kids. Only the refrigerator was buzzing, and outside there was a garbage can somewhere rattling in the wind. Helger whispered, "Jens said I knew." and suddenly she no longer sounded like a queen, more like a neighborhood. I looked at her for a long time and asked if she also knew that the same application should replace a private car loan. Jens drove around and hissed my name. This tough Claudia, who always came when his facade cracked. So I put down the second sheet, the bank statement of his secret installment for a BMW, which he allegedly read. He had only forgotten to mention this while he continued to act as if he were the tall man in the fine coat. She said she just thought a son should be allowed to take care, especially if one's own wife had enough. Something inside me was tipping, not loudly, more like ice on the Ulster when it cracks in the middle of the night. I said, "Enough for whom, Helger? For both of you, or for the grandchildren whose training fund Jens wanted to touch." Leonie looked up at me, silent and pale, and I hated every adult at the table except the children at that moment. Fabian asked hoarsely if that was the voice, and Jens did not answer immediately, which was already answer enough for everyone. I then explained quite objectively that I had been to the notary 10 days ago and had changed all access rights. Since then, the rents have been transferred directly to a trust fund for Leonie and Mars, inviolable until your 30th birthday. No matter who whined. He asked if I had gone completely crazy hiding assets from my own husband, and then I really laughed. I said, "I haven't hidden anything, Jens. I just put it where greedy hands just can't get." Uwe lowered his gaze so deeply, as if he hoped to reappear under the table in Schleswig-Holstein and not have heard anything. Anke started talking and said, "Family must stick together. Hey, you can solve mistakes internally and without such humiliations." I asked her if she meant the intern part by using Helga's tablet and passing on passwords. Then even her forehead turned white, and Helga looked at her daughter, as if recognizing her for the first time. These words no longer struck me. They sounded like old cutlery, dull, loud and long since no longer useful. So I said the sentence I had been memorizing for days, and suddenly the room was very small. "As of today," I said, "you like to pay your mother 5,000 euros a month, but exclusively from your own salary and because you don't have one. Oh, because your company is insolvent and you have been hiding bills since November. This will be difficult." Helger opened his eyes. Anke whispered no, and Jens jumped up so hastily that his chair tilted back. He shouted, "I would have no right to spread out his business problems here," and that's where Fabian finally just looked. My son slowly asked if that was the real reason why Jens had written to him last week about a loan. Jens said at first that it was private, but Fabian pulled out his cell phone and just read the message out loud. This meant that opera values had to remain within the family, and a good son-in-law would of course help without discussion. Fabian first looked at Jens, then at me, and in his gaze there was that cold clarity that I knew from my father. He said that if anyone had said family here, it was just as a cover, and I would have been damn right. Helger now no longer began to cry, but to justify himself about rent, pension, medicines, and old deprivations. I let her finish and then said, "Necessity does not excuse a fake, and a claim is far from love." I sent the children with Fabian to the hallway, where their jackets were already lying, because they didn't need this rest. Then I pulled the last envelope out of my bag, cream-colored, folded, with the stamp of my lawyer from Hamburg. Jens knew him immediately because I had given him the chance to tell the truth myself last night. In the envelope was not only the separation agreement, but also the notice of attempted fraud, in case he wanted to continue to make theater. Then all his arrogance collapsed, as if someone had let the air out of a cheap party in front of Erika. He slowly sat down again and actually asked if I should have done that on Helga's birthday. I replied, "No, don't have to. But you chose this very moment to play generously in front of witnesses. Anyone who builds a stage has to live with it when the light suddenly hits not him, but the truth, in front of everyone." I had no pity left, only that sober calm that comes when you finally close a door. Outside it started to drizzle again. This fine North German rain, which is not dramatic but still gets in everywhere. I pulled on my coat, called Leonie and Mats to me, and stroked their hair in silence. Before I left, I put an envelope to Helga next to the plate, this time really and exclusively intended for her alone. In it, there was an invitation to an independent pension consultation and the number of a woman who helps elderly people to sort. I said, "I would have liked to give you help, honestly, but no more at the expense of my children and grandchildren." Then I looked at Jens one last time and said, "Arrogance is expensive, especially if you want to give away someone else's money." Fabian took the car key, put Mats in the child seat, and said dryly, "Grandma, I'm going after you today." On the way back via the A1, it was quiet in the car. Only the windshield wiper counted my pulse tonight. Leonie asked at some point if great-grandmother was now poor, and I said, "No, honey, but some people confuse love with entitlement." She thought about it, saw the lights of Lübeck getting smaller, and then nodded so seriously that it warmed me. At home, I put the wet shoes in the hallway, made myself strong tea, and signed the last folder. Late at night, a message came from Jens. Just 2 words. Wiren, nothing more, nothing else. I put them out unread, looked out the window at the quiet Hamburg roofs, and didn't feel a bit cruel. I just finally felt like the woman who bears my name, protects my house, and keeps the last word again.